Wow. Hey, listen, we are back once again for Life Lessons Live with the crew. And we thank God for everybody that's tuning in, and thank God for you, Stephanie. And man, we got snow going on and all that good stuff. And, man, it's
Snow and
sleeting,
ice.
it's snowing, and
Oh,
all of that. And it's pretty outside, though, and it's pretty out. And I've been playing in the snow and all that, made some snow ice cream. you know, hey, it's a change of scenery, a little change, making things different. Hey, Minister D, what's going on?
hey.
Glad you could be with us today. And we want to welcome our Facebook family and our YouTube family and Periscope and all of that. And I want to remind you that you can join in the conversation. Well, that's what we're here to do. It's just talk, have some healthy conversation about things that are going on, and share some insights and wisdom. We don't know everything. And this is a no judgment zone. We're not here to judge. We're not here to criticize. We're here to have a conversation. I believe that we are mature, and mature people can have conversations. And I believe we can come together and solve problems. We have to identify them. We have to talk about them and say, hey, is this a problem or is it not? And so we want to have a multi-generational, multicultural, and we want you to join in the conversation. You can do that by commenting in the comment section. We'll see it live, and we will communicate with you. All right. So let's get on with it. We're going to be talking about, becoming what we want to see, and everything, and looking for solutions. We shared on last week about, have we chosen materialism and greed over righteousness? Doing things that's acceptable to God, doing things that will allow us to be responsible and preparing the next generation for success. So, listen, I want our guests to, not our guests, but our team to introduce themselves, and we're going to jump in there and talk a little bit more about this thing. We've been having a great conversation before we got on the air live. So, D, let them know who you are, and we can get on with this thing today. I'm excited.
Hello, my name is Dee Hill. I'm a local school teacher, a youth minister at my church, and
Yeah.
just a servant of God. I'm just excited to be here.
Amen. Amen. Stephanie?
Hey guys, I'm Stephanie Monique here in Tupelo, Mississippi. Work for Sleep Disorder Center here, server, entrepreneur, educator, and mentor. So I'm excited too. This is going to be a great conversation today.
I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. So, we were talking last week, we were talking about, what happened to young people being raised, where are we drawing our standards from? We shared about, where we get our virtues from. The society is going to be based upon, where we draw our virtues from, where we get our standards from, and we had said that the character of any society will be defined by how it defines its virtues, who and what we honor, and our behaviors undermine character, and it also limits our ability to be successful. So we're just talking about, what are we saying is successful, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, going back down memory lane. Remember when we were younger? Amen. I'm the oldest one on here today. But remembering, as a child, things that were acceptable was not acceptable. Disrespect was not an acceptable thing. Attitude was not an acceptable thing. Behaving inappropriate for my age was not acceptable. And I think that scale is moved. Stephanie, as we were talking before we got on the air, you were saying there were some things you didn't do until you got into high school.
That's right.
But now I think has the age or the level of appropriateness changed for what we're seeing today in behaviors, as far as what young people are doing, how they're carrying themselves, and where does this stuff come from? Where did it come from? And what are we going to do about it? Are we going to have conversations? Again, we believe healthy conversations birth new seasons. So just talk a little bit about what we were sharing before we got on, and also you too, Minister D.
You know, what we were talking about was just for me, how we see little girls, you know, operating and participating in things that for me was like reserved for, you know, a high school dance or a prom, such as getting your nails done or getting your makeup done or getting your hair done. You know, now it's almost like that's a star or a badge in today's society. Like, you know, you got you good, or you got kudos, or whatever the case may be, because you get your nails done. And you know, we were talking about where those things come from. And so I don't know, like for me, it just wasn't allowed. Like I know I wore ponytails and barrettes and stuff like that for a while, and then I started doing my own hair, but I wasn't able to go to the salon and get hairstyles and stuff like that when I was a teenager, you know, or you got a job and, you know, you paid for stuff yourself.
Okay.
But it still had to be approved by my mother.
So you just because you had a job and was making your own money, you still wasn't able to just do anything that you wanted to do.
Right. To where I wanted to wear. Yeah. Okay. Or to listen to what I wanted to listen to or do what I wanted to do. Those things still had to be approved, you know, by authority. And I do think that, you know, children kind of have this thing, not all, some, okay, this thing where they're watching what's before them. So whatever is modeled before them, reality TV is at an all-time high.
Oh my.
It has caused, you know, some character issues and character traits and character flaws to really, you know, be put on the forefront, to be microscoped, I guess you can say. Mm-hmm. Because when we see, you know, the girls of Atlanta, you know, housewives of Atlanta, when we see the Little Women of Atlanta, you know, the things they're doing, and, you know, all of that, you know, it's so children, okay, if they're not being shaped, again, we talked about their character and how they're, you know, developed, and if they're not being shaped, sold into, and, you know, given responsibility and being made to help, to be accountable, they're impressionable. You know, their minds and their spirits are impressionable, and they're taking on those things. So I think that has a lot to do with it. If we talk about where did these things come from and how did it shift, you know, the level of approvalness of these things. And I think that, you know, not having proper parenting.
Oh, okay. Now we're not being critical.
No,
we're not, we're just having a conversation.
Yes.
You know, one thing we brought up last week that is discontent is the first necessity of progress. Mm-hmm. Are we good with the direction things are moving concerning what society is looking like? You know, what our children, how our children are coming up, how our young adults are behaving, how even our mature adults, you know, how do they carry themselves? I remember when grandmothers, you know, was proud to be grandmothers. Now they don't want to be called grandma. They want to be called glamma and all these different types of things. And listen, I don't have any problem with that if you want to be called grandma, but act like a grandma.
Yes, Bishop.
You know, be an example. We got to be what we want to see, and we got to build the change that we want to see. And I'm thinking of building character. You know, so D, you teach 5th and 6th graders. We've talked about that. We talked about raising last week. You shared your testimony about how your dad will go up to the school and have a conversation with the principal, and you knew that your dad and the principal cared about you, and that, hey, misbehaving, not living to the standards in which you would expect to live from your home wasn't going to fly in the public, whether you were at school or anywhere else. My dad, it's like he had I spies all over the place. It's like I'm thinking I'm good, I'm away from home, and all of a sudden he'd know, and I'd be like, nah, I know he wasn't there. But one of his friends saw me, you know, not acting the way and they held me accountable for my behavior. They told my father. My father had a conversation with me about that and said, hey, so-and-so told me that you were cutting up, you know, the other day. What was all that about? You know, and he let me know, oh, I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere. So, Mr. D, with these 5th and 6th graders and being a youth leader in your church and all of that, are we accepting the way things are going, and not having any conversations and even talking as parents and saying, whew, I hear parents say this, and I won't say that, I'm gonna let you talk. Whoo, they're growing up so fast. What do we do with that? What do we do with that?
Yeah, you're right, Bishop. They are children these days are a lot more impressionable than we were growing up
Okay.
at my age. What they see is what they want to be. Like you said,
Wow.
what they see is what they want to be. I had actually written down Real Housewives because I have my niece who's 17 years old. She watches it every week. She loves it. And then
Okay.
you see the nails. She
Mhm.
said, I don't feel right without my nails. She sees
17.
17.
Okay.
She sees the hair. She wants that. Has beautiful hair. Wants
Mhm.
the weave. And I'm not knocking that. It's just
Right.
the fact that she prioritized that. And she was raised with a standard. But when you get influences and you're able to watch it and it becomes impressive on you, that's what you want to see. And and we talk often about, because you got to work for the things that you want. Things are not going to be handed to you
Okay.
always. So they're very impressionable upon just things that they see. There is a young man that lives where I grew up, and he is into selling. Okay.
Okay.
And I was riding with one of the youth one day, and they were like, "Oh man, he has everything. He has everything." And so they were impressed by that. And I told them, baby, in the long run, that everything that you get not the right way is you're gonna pay for it some kind of way.
Right.
So they're impressed by what they see. They think what they see is what they want to be. I want the cash. I want the hair. I want the nails. I want all of that. And it's okay in its place, and it's prioritized. And
Yeah.
they're not being taught priorities. And a lot of days we have parents that ask the child, what's your suggestion for 4th, 5th grade children? What do you want to do? And they don't have the wisdom to be a parent. So the parent has to step up and be the parent until the child grows in wisdom. And that's been switched up.
So you said a parent got to be the parent again.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That was that last statement, those parenting skills. I didn't have an option or a choice. It's like, this is what it's going to be. This is the standard. I remember being corrected when I was coming up, teenage, early 20s, being corrected about certain clothing. Even my dad would say certain things about, how to test whether or not your clothing is appropriate. And I found that to be so, then it hurt my feelings. But as I got older, I was like, man, I so appreciate my father for doing that. And it came better because it was my father.
Yeah.
And because he knew what I would face in society or in different environments by wearing certain clothing, or what it would suggest, and how people would, make decisions, or, how that impression would be, if I was to have that on. And so I just remember that. I remember older women correcting me, baby, that's a little too short. And I just remember that. And so it almost seemed like in today's time, people are afraid to say something to people. And I know that there are certain repercussions behind it, because I've been that person to say, hey, such and such, and I get reprimanded, like, don't say nothing to my child, or don't you correct my child. Who do you think you are? And I'm like, whoo, wait.
So that brings me to this point then. So are parents talking to parents? Are parents talking to parents? Are grandmothers and grandfathers talking to their children about how they're raising their children?
That's good.
Are those things? Are parents having conversations? Because we can't just say, "Woo, these children growing up so fast." But you allow them to grow up so fast. You put them in. You've got them doing things that is not age appropriate. And all of these types of things now. And we're not talking about learning capacity. We're talking about behaviors.
Yeah.
So are parents talking to parents and are the parents being parented?
Bishop, you said something. Are they doing things that are age appropriate? I think that that's a conversation that needs to be had amongst young adults, parents, people that have children, don't have children, because everything is changing in our society and we are becoming more technical, even, with the way that we're doing things. And so the response that I have gotten when I say something is not age appropriate, such as a little girl with a lace front on, that's not age appropriate. It says that they say, well, things have changed, things have evolved. We're not old school or this is what is acceptable now. And it's like, but standards don't drop. If that was the standard, or if that was just the standard, like, how can we say that that's appropriate now?
Because we're drawing standards from society,
That's right.
which has lost its moral excellence, okay, and its desire to please God. Now is just want to be pleasing of themselves. And so when we draw our standards from the wrong place, remember what we said was the condition of any society is going to be based upon where it draws its virtues from.
Right.
And if we're going to give in to popularity, materialism, we're going to give in to greed, we're going to give in to convenience, we'll lower the standard. It wasn't convenient for my mother to sit my younger sister down and comb her hair like she should as a young girl, and teach her how to groom herself properly and all those types of things. It was a sacrifice. And now, do you think that sometimes as parents, we so busy, or it's easier to do things so that we don't have to do it? So if I can teach you to, and guys, I don't want to just beat down on wigs and things of that nature, but you understand what I'm saying. It takes some effort to sit down. And my sister had long hair, and I remember it was a tug of war between my mother and my sister, because she didn't like getting her hair washed, and my mother wasn't gonna put no perm in it, so she had to brush it and take care of it and do all of that, man. And it was a woo-wee. There was some stuff going on in there. And I remember my sister getting fussed at and different things of that nature. And they were going back and forth, boy. But they were it had to be done. And my mother didn't shy away from that. She didn't take the easy way out. Well, we're just going to buy you some hair, or whatever. Right. The ease of things as we were coming up was a young girl getting some braids in her hair, getting her hair French braided or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And that took away some of the need for combing the hair every day and those different types of things, and now we've evolved to lace fronts and 16, 18, I don't know what the inches are, all the different types of things, which in my opinion is not age appropriate for a teenager, Right. And so parents talking to parents, are they talking amongst one another? Or are we allowing society, what do we call it? The shows on television, the media, entertainment world, reality television to begin setting the standards for us? Are we going to the source of life, and drawing those standards? And do we honor and respect? I heard you use the word old school. Well, that's old school, and this times have changed now. There is no old school. Okay, old school, new school. No, what's appropriate is just appropriate. Okay, it may not be. Let me see. They might not be wearing Levi's now, but it's right to have your clothes pulled up on you. Right. They may be whatever these new names are out here. I don't know, but they ought to be pulled up on you. They ought to look right on you. They ought to cover you up, because that's what clothes are made to do, cover you up, and they ought not be too tight, and those types of things. And those are just standards that don't change. I remember going and shopping. That's why sometimes I don't even like to shop, because some of these new designers, I go in and put on a pair of pants, they don't feel right. Like, no, these too tight, man. Men don't wear their pants like this. You don't wear it. And they call these skinny jeans. Skinny jeans? Hold on. I'm a man. I don't want nothing fitting me like that. You know, it's
That's
uncomfortable to me. It doesn't even feel right. What you call it, European cut?
That's the European cut.
Okay, European cut. All right. Well, it don't cut right with me. No.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's the cultural differences when it comes to fashion and what's fashionable, what's accepted.
But what about responsibility though? Having the capacity for moral decisions and we use the word being responsible and being held accountable. You know, what about that? Being capable of a rational thinking, rational behavior. You don't go, you go and you put that clothes on and it's revealing everything, it's tight and all of that. Is there not someone that say, where are you going to wear that to? You need to take that back to the store. That's too tight. That's inappropriate. It's too revealing. What happened to those standards? Or are they getting the standards off of reality TV and entertainment industries and things of those nature? What's happening?
And Bishop too, like people have just become, I feel like, arrogant in the sense of, it's acceptable in certain environments. And so when it's not acceptable or when you get corrected or when somebody says something about it, you just shift and you move to another environment where it is, accepted. And I've
you
seen
say shifting, so being shifty, huh?
yeah, being shifty, and moving, well, if you don't accept me here, then I could just go, to another place. Or I can just do what I want to do. And so into this selfish place of, well, this is what I like. This is what I want. And for me, just because I had some opportunities in college, some of these things I didn't learn in my household, and I'm not knocking my parents. They did a wonderful job.
Right.
But some things that I learned when I was in college too, there are just certain etiquette that you have. When you go places in proper ways of dressing, especially when you're doing interviews or, when you're going into certain rooms, certain environments, certain things that are appropriate. We don't wear mini skirts to the office, different things that you learn, proper etiquette.
You're using the word etiquette. Is etiquette being taught anymore?
No, sir, not like it was. I think they took that actually out of high school. We used to do, what was that called, D? We used to do like 4-H stuff.
Not sure. I don't.
Well, they would teach you like how to wash dishes or how to
home ec.
That's it. They would teach you these things in school, and they took that out of school. So now we're not getting those practical things that you would normally get in school or at home.
So you brought up something, etiquette.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that something that we need to implement? I know there are organizations out here that young ladies, they do the balls and things of that nature. And I believe they take them through these etiquette courses. But are we talking to parents about that? Are parents talking about parents about that? Where are the voices? Technology has made the whole world accessible, to a child sitting in a rural community or whatever. Now that person that used to be that I'll say this because we're from Mississippi or whatever, that innocent country person now have access to the whole world. And, where did the standards, what happened to the Southern Belle, that's raised well and all of those different types of things. And when someone talks about, they used to have the thing about, well, that's big city. They grew up in the big city, so their way of thinking, their way of doing things a little different. But then if you're from the South, there was a what I want to say, there was some pride about being from the South, raised properly, good raising, friendly, kind people that help one another, those types of things, right?
Hey, Bishop, can I just chime in?
Yes, absolutely. Anytime.
At being a youth leader and working in the school system, I've seen, especially younger parents on both sides of the spectrum. One parent, we can sit down and we can talk about what's going on with the child. How can we deal with it? They're open to suggestions. They're open to the discipline at home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we can have parents like, what did you do? What did the adult do to cause my child to do this? What did my child didn't do anything wrong syndrome some parents have. So and thinking about what y'all were saying, it starts at home. Okay, number one, it starts at home, but a lot of times they're not, the parents, and a lot of them are so young, don't build a foundation, and it's like a microwave, whatever, it's quick and satisfying. If my child is, I've heard several parents say this before, if my child is happy, I'm happy. But children are going to be happy by things. Okay?
Right.
They're going to be satisfied with things. Okay. But they need to learn like the spiritual foundation. What is love? How to treat others. And when you were talking about the etiquette classes and such, that's a moment in a child's life. It has to be something that's reoccurring. It's happening. It's talking about them to it, teaching them all the time. You know, we want to do it one time and then expect them to be productive citizens.
Right.
It has to be something that's consistent going on with them.
Yes.
A lot of times it wasn't done with, especially the younger parents, or they saw it as, okay, I'm going to do different than what my parent does. And sometimes doing different doesn't produce the better outcome for their children.
That's good. The quality of life. Mm-hmm. Things that really matter. Right. What happened to sitting down, having dinner together? Having conversations and observing whether or not your child knows how to carry themselves just around the table at a meal, have a healthy conversation. You ask questions and you have conversation with them to see how they're thinking, see what their responses are. How'd your day at school go today? Yada, yada, yada. And have questions and different things so that you can begin inspecting what you're expecting.
That's true. That's good.
And I believe that where the lack of development is, there's a lack of the investment of time. And so have we, again, chosen materialism and greed over these things that produce what we want to see? And then I asked the other question, what do we want to see? Do we know what we want to see? Are we just trying to replicate images that are on television and entertainment industries, whatever we see in these streets that may be popular, whatever's on social media that says you're popular? Is that what we've given up our time to, our effort, our energy to? And if we can look like what we're impressed with, because you use the word, these kids are very impressionable. Are adults very impressionable? Because the parents are very impressionable, the children are going to be impressionable because that's what's flowing. The anointing flows down, whether it's good or bad. And so are we okay with what we look like as a society? And do we talk about that? Do we talk about issues? Or do we just cover them up?
It's a good question.
Do we just buy a new bag? Do we just buy a new outfit? Do we just, do something, the latest, greatest activity that's going on? Do we just, do something social rather than address what we are discontent about. So that's I'm throwing it out there to you, because I believe every generation got to take responsibility for itself. So I'm encouraging parents talking to parents about real stuff, not pretending, and not just saying my child's so bad and everybody agreeing on how bad they are and all this. No, 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 no. Are you spending time with that child? Have you told that child you love them? Lately, when the last time you told your child you love them?
And that's a big deal with especially our young Black men. I can remember last year there was a young man. He was really acting up in class,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a leader that says, okay, let's try to figure out what's wrong first before we bash in with discipline. And
Yeah.
so we were in the hall talking, me and my AP, and we had this child. And we were talking to him, and they had brought another man in to kind of help settle him. And so the topic of his dad came up. And then that's when the child began to break down right there. He was like, you can tell him he's not going to be there anyway. He's not going to do anything anyway. So that was the root of that child's misbehavior, that lack of influence from a good father. So that's hurting. I know that's a whole nother topic there, but that's hurting some of especially our young Black men. When they're looking for that fatherly influence, and the father doesn't have the standard to raise them, take the time to raise them, just he goes in and out how he wants to. So that's an area right there that conversation and change needs to take place in.
Thank you for putting it out there, because we're talking about being responsible today.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the definition of being responsible is being chargeable with being the author of the cause of something. Can we have those types of healthy conversations? Can we say, are we talking? I'm talking to men as I get a chance, and not because I'm a pastor, it's because I'm a man.
Yes.
I'm concerned about when I see another man and their children. I'm sharing, I'm talking. I want to have a conversation with them. I want to learn. I want to share what I know with others, so that our children can be a society that they can cohabitate with one another, and they can do things, not be angry, not do things that's going to be destroying one another and all those types of things, and so can we hold each other responsible, and can we have conversations about these things and share information? And remember, I said in one of our conversations that Steve Covey, one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, says, seek to understand before wanting to be understood.
That's good.
Seek to understand before wanting to be understood. One of the biggest questions that can be answered is why. Why is this behavior going on? Why does society look like this? Why are children so impressionable? And we need to have conversations. We need to have conversations, and we got to accept responsibility. We got to be responsible, and therefore accountable. So how do we do these things? How do we do these things?
Well, I know for one is have a conversation. For me, it's been to just start with the people that are immediately around me.
That's excellent. Yeah.
And so I have now been given a small percentage of responsibility in dealing with my godson, Caleb. And so, taking time to have conversations with him and be engaged with things that are, interesting to him. A lot of times we want children to do what we're doing. And that's something that I have learned, is that, I have to be engaged and spend time with what he is, engaged with, and so basketball, and of course doing homework and doing different things like that, and having conversations, and then asking him questions to really see if he can logically answer, and paying attention to those things, and helping him. So having conversations with my coworkers and people that are around me, and learning, because even in some of those things, you have to learn, like you said, care enough to ask the questions and to do enough, but learning the differences in people's environments and in their culture, you know, what their standards have been, what they know. So some people, they don't, like, that's never even been exposed to them. Some of the things that we're talking about as far as like standards and family, you know, I remember watching on TV. Now, we never too much did this because my mom was a single mother for a long while, and she worked 2 or 3 jobs. And so most of the time I was with her. So we kind of ate on the go. So
Okay.
I've seen on TV now, okay, where families will like set tables and sit at the dinner table and actually have like a knife, a fork, and a spoon.
Okay.
You know, and so I never was really introduced to that until we had like big family dinners. But just seeing those things, and like you said, sitting around the dinner table, having a conversation and being able to discuss things, a lot of things happen over the dinner table as well.
Let me break in right there.
Okay.
These things, are they even important anymore? You know, knowing that, you know, I see children growing up and sometimes they be 8 and can't properly use a fork or a spoon yet. And like, what in the world? Don't know how to use a fork and a knife yet.
Knife. Come on, Bishop.
What have we been doing? And so have we have our priorities gotten away from the things that really matter, that develop character and bring some type of balance and things of that nature to children's lives? You know, where do we get the shift from? Now is the dinner table throwing a McDonald's bag in the back seat, you know, and us on to our next venture, you know? Yeah. Is it are we asking, what do you want to do, with some boundaries and putting in there, you know, okay, you'd like to play basketball, but we're also going to learn etiquette.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can play basketball if you're going to learn etiquette. You know, we're gonna do what's right. You know, you can shop for yourself, okay, but there's going to be some standards. Here's the deal: I gotta approve what you buy. I don't have to like it, but I have to approve it. And here are the boundaries. Here are the standards. It fits you properly. It doesn't have anything vulgar on it. It just doesn't misrepresent who you are. Listen at this. And it's not going to cause confrontational things to be drawn your way.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, see, these are some solutions. I mean, having conversations and making sure they're growing up, and you're teaching them responsibility by making right decisions, but you're also putting some moral excellence in there. You're putting integrity in there. You know, you're calling them on the carpet about lying, if they happen to lie. That is not acceptable. And we're not going to just sweep that under the rug. There has to be repercussions, you know, the whole 9 yards. You know, you're not thinking right about that. That's not a right feeling to have. You know, you're not going to grow up being jealous and envious of another young lady or another young man. And what you were describing, Dee, with the young men that saw the young man in the community doing things that, you know, he shouldn't be doing, gaining money in the wrong ways, and say, you know, that's covetousness, don't you? Mm-hmm. And that will always get you in trouble. Don't ever covet what somebody else has, because you don't know what it cost them and what they're doing in order to have it. You know, just conversations, just talking and addressing things. So how do we get to this? As I said, conversations birth new seasons. You know, talking.
And you definitely
come on, D. Come on.
I was
Please.
just about to say, you definitely have to have a willing listening audience, not, as you said earlier, not presenting as we know everything, or the ones that's holding the conversation knows everything,
Right.
are starting the conversation. You got to have somebody that's willing to listen. And if you're willing to listen, you're possibly willing to change some of those ways that are not productive. But got to get to a point where the next person will listen. So that's a
That
work in itself.
that is excellent. Can we? This is some things that I think can begin creating those types of environments, because I know there are other parents and there are other grandparents and other people in the world, period, that have a discontent for the way society is looking right now.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not being accusational, not being judgmental or anything like that. But what do you think about the way this is going? I mean, just throwing that and seeing what the conversation is about, to see if you can begin to gain some advocacy. Some people are like, well, you know what? We're thinking the same way. And then that, okay, I got to ally with them right here. We can have some conversations, and that thing just begins to grow and grow and grow. And then we got a circle of people that's addressing the issues that are before us, and we can do it healthily. And we don't have to be the same. We don't have to agree on everything, but we do have to have some discontent with the way things are currently going, so that we begin to make some progress.
Right.
That makes sense.
Good.
Okay. So are we courageous enough? Because remember, we talked about one of the character traits of one of the things concerning characters being courageous, and
Yeah.
and that's having character in crisis. Being honest and open and transparent. And I heard you, Stephanie, say that I've kind of gotten in some situations because I said something and they said, "Don't say nothing to my child about that." So if I was to experience something like that, my next thing would be, I'm not going to say anything to the child, because I'm not going to give up on affecting change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have conversations with parents. And then, okay, because when you gave your illustration last week, or the week before last, about your dad and the principal having a conversation, once the principal and your dad were on one accord, the principal's like, all right, it's on and popping now.
Yes.
Daddy felt good. The principal felt good. The principal didn't have to have these fears and inhibitions. He didn't have to worry about, feeling like I'm going to offend the parents, because your parents made sure that he knew where they stood and what they expected from you, and he could hold you accountable for right behavior.
That's right.
So, Stephanie, at that point, I think we have to follow protocol.
Yes, sir.
Have a conversation with the parent concerning things. And again, not accusing their child, because people get very defensive about their children.
Yes, they do.
But asking them a question, what do you think about, yada, 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 and let the parent respond.
Mm-hmm.
Well, immediately, Bishop, in that particular situation, I immediately apologized and repented to the parent, because I know that repentance breeds restoration.
Yeah, that's good.
And so when I did that, it softened the parent up. And she said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It's been a long day. I'm tired. These kids getting on my nerves, and I can tell. And that's why I said something. But anyway, and so we had a good conversation, and all ended well.
Good.
But that, again, because of the grace of God and the gifts, that operate, that wisdom move was to immediately, let her know that I wasn't trying to be overbearing or defensive, critical. You know what I mean? And so sometimes when you do address certain things, depending on the way that you address it, it can be taken as if, I'm not doing a good job. And she immediately became defensive.
Yeah.
And so, that was not my intention. And so I immediately apologized and repented, because I said, I'm never questioning or trying to say that, you're not a good mother. You're a great mother. And thank you for what you do. So that caused a shift in that conversation, and we were able to move forward from there.
Do you think that we can have more conversations about the old adage says it takes a village to raise a child?
Absolutely.
In the circles that we have to walk in and just encourage and affirm everyone, letting them know that, listen, we are all headed towards the same goal. And it takes all of us to make sure that these children and that our society, our neighborhood, our homes, our workplaces, our schools are safe and wholesome and loving and respectful, and being good examples are being put before our children, because they are very impressionable. They're very impressionable, and we need to be the change that we want to see. We're not going to be irresponsible. We're not going to we're going to make sure that we have this, I guess you would say, this concept that it takes all of us to do this. It takes all of us to do this, and can we have those types of conversations? I heard you, D, saying that, can we find that group of people that have these concerns that are willing to say, you know what, it does take a village to raise a child. There's a lot of people that are crying out for help. A lot of people that have become defensive. They are very challenged. They're overwhelmed. They're intimidated with these things that we call with life, period. And they got to know that there's a people that are there for them. So how can we accomplish some of those things?
I think I've heard before that the first step to change is admitting. If we can get people to admit, even the ones that are trying to start the conversation, admit where I've gone wrong. I may have said things or done some things before I shouldn't have done, but wisdom taught me how to change it, or somebody impacted my life and told me how to change it, or directed me how to change it. So if we can let them see, okay, no, we're not perfect. We're not perfect. We're trying to make a change so we can see a change, and we're not being selfish with it, And so I've heard a quote before, is people don't care how much you know until they know that you care. So let me see that you care. We care first. We care enough about changing our youth, changing the parent mindset, so that everybody who joins in can be more productive, can be more successful in whatever task it is. So admitting and then being open to the change, in a non-defensive way. Is a positive step. I can remember when I had one of my students in 5th grade, the mother and I were talking back and forth because the little girl, she was acting up in every single class. So I asked the mother, I said, can I pull her out? And I talked to her. She was like, yes, please. And she was a great mother, but she didn't know how to reach her child. So I pulled the child out. We had a long conversation, and the end result was the mother was being too much of a disciplinarian on the child with her expectations. And she said she's all the time hollering at me and this and that. So we had conversations about that. And then I took what she said back to the mother, and she was like, I didn't even realize it. I didn't realize that I was being too hard on her or having too many expectations of her. So that began to change right there with her. So if we can look at it, examine it, and admit, and then we can move.
That's powerful. That's powerful. I use an acronym called HOT, being honest, open, and transparent.
Good.
We got to be transparent. We got to be honest. We got to be open. And this isn't, because you have some people say, I don't want people all over my business.
Right.
I'm not trying to be in your business. I'm not telling you to all the private, intimate areas of your life. However, some things are being revealed through your child's behavior. Some things a little bit need to make some adjustments on. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It may be, like you said, discipline is right. but too much discipline
Yes.
breeds a child becoming defensive, you know, and you're causing the child to become wrathful. And you don't want to do that, you know. Yeah, Stephanie, your hand was up.
Yeah, Bishop, I remember when we did an acronym for We Care, and we
Yeah.
said we were concerned, appreciative, responsive, and empowering.
Yes.
Good.
And the reason why I said that or brought that up when you said that, D, when you said we got to let them know that we care, because sometimes people don't receive help from outside because they don't know that you really have the best interest of their child at heart.
Yeah.
And so mothers are going to be extremely protective. You know, it's instinctively in them to be protective of their child. And so, you know, when I don't know if you're correcting them because of what they did was wrong, or because you don't like the family, or because of the color of their skin, or because of social economical background, I'm more apprehensive to allowing the village to help me, because I don't know if the village is really for me.
I got you.
That makes
That's
sense?
good.
And I experienced that with my mother. People were not allowed to correct me and help me because I was half Black.
Okay.
And so my mother didn't know if they were getting on to me because I was being disobedient or because I was half Black.
Wow.
So she had to take in, and that made her be overcompensating as far as teaching me, you know, helping me with, you know, just learning things in life.
Okay.
I think that is important, making sure that, first of all, we check ourselves, you know, making sure that we are really concerned about the welfare of the children and their future.
Yeah.
That has to be the motivating factor. And nothing can change that. Circumstances, money, you know, things can't change our love and our concern and our appreciativeness of the children and their future. So that's important. That has to be the motivating factor.
Good.
That's excellent. You brought a whole plethora of things in there, and as you said, seeking to understand, you know, economics, it plays a role, exposure, opportunity, you know, all of these things play a role in some things that is happening. And I want to throw this out too. This word just dropped in my spirit. How do we deal with this pride that's amongst us?
Oh,
You know, this pride thing.
oh Lord, help.
You know,
Help us, Jesus.
I need help, but I'm too prideful to say that I need help. And it's affecting everything and everyone around me, you know. And, you know, when we start talking about these babies, these children, they're only 8 years old. They don't need to deal with those types of things. They shouldn't have that type of pressure on them, you know, to like I said, there are a lot of things out here, but we got to talk about them, and we've got to put our minds together, our experiences together, what we do. Listen, our graces together. See, God's giving you a grace, D, to talk to these young girls, and they'll open up to you. You know, they'll open up to you, and finding someone. And sometimes a parent doesn't have that grace on them. Not that they're not a great parent, but they just needed some help. They needed someone else to come in, and that child was made to feel comfortable because of the anointing, the grace that's upon their life, and they were able to reach them. Okay. And so I say this: teach to teach to teach. We got to always be teaching, always be willing to learn, always be okay with saying, you know what, I'm not very good at that. And so I need some help in this area, you know. And single parent moms raising these boys, you know, my hat's off to you, doing amazing jobs. But hey, you know, there are brothers out there. There's some great guys that are out here in the community that are doing things. They want to spend time with young boys. They want to do things with them. I'm talking about the right things, teaching them the right things and all of that. And we got to get together. I mean, I'd love to, get with some of those guys, bring them on. We can talk, and let them know what's going on, what they're doing with young boys, and same thing with young girls. There are a lot of great people doing great things in the community. A lot of times it's not being communicated.
Yeah.
It's not being communicated and things of that nature. And so we got to solve some of these problems. Charlotte's just posted, and she's saying, yes, there are a lot of people looking for help. Parents have to be willing to do the work, commit, and engage the solution.
Woo.
Change. Every situation is different, and I believe a group of people that will show up, even if it's once a month, to listen is an outlet. That's true. That's true. That's true. Hey, let's talk about that, Charlotte. Have some things, and we're not trying to reinvent no wheel. Are you understand? We're not trying to reinvent a wheel. That's not it. But we do want to have conversations about things and not act as though society isn't going in the wrong direction. We can have boundaries. Yes, things have changed, times have changed, but there's still the moral excellence, the character, the pureness of life, still having correct thinking and correct behavior and things that are acceptable to God. That's never going to change. That's never going to change. And how do we in this 21st century achieve those things with this new way of doing things, just the technology, the capability of the ease of changing the way you look. We got another dynamic, and we only got 3 minutes. We got to get out of here, and I want to throw this out so we can talk about next week. What about the size of children today?
Ooh.
Now you have someone 12 that looks like they're 21.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the effects of you allowing them to do things that are not age appropriate?
Come on, Bishop.
What do they get into? What do they attract?
Come on, Bishop.
And that's both for males and females.
They attract predators.
Wow. Well, listen, guys, we had another great conversation. This hour has gone by once again. D, give us your final comments. You got 1 minute, and Stephanie, you got 1 minute, and then we're going to be ready for next week.
Okay. Like you said, this has been very good. Very good. Just to reiterate, each one reach one. If someone is willing, let me go out and reach the next person. Let them go out and reach the next person. And then we can have a circle of change and a sphere of influence. So it's good. It's needed. It's desired. Just got to be willing.
Excellent. Stephanie?
I would just say, let that be your motto, that we care, and take that on, be concerned, be appreciative, be responsible, and then be empowering.
Okay. Yeah. Being appreciative. Listen, I believe most people are doing the best they can. I believe that. Sometimes we need a little help. Mm-hmm. So again, we're not being critical. We're not being judgmental. We all want to be a help. I believe that it does take a village. It takes a community. It takes a city. It takes the neighborhood. My neighborhood helped raise me. I was raised in the home, but then accountability came through the neighborhood. It came through the community. When we went to school, standards didn't change. Teachers would call the parents because they knew what the parents stood for. They could say, now, your parents don't go for that. So communication and knowing one another. So you can call it old school, you can call it whatever, but I can tell you this, I didn't do everything that was right, but I had the raising. I knew that, the Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he grows old, he won't depart from it. And so we got to at least make sure that the raising is there, the right influences is there, and be able to tell them the difference between the way this looks and the way that looks and what's right. Okay, so they can make right decisions. All right. Amen. Listen, that's our time. We love everybody. Thank you for everyone that's been commenting. We didn't get to post all of your comments up, but they are on the board and they can see it on Facebook Live. Every comment, you can still see it on the Facebook page. You can still see it, I believe, on the YouTube page and all those things. So go out there, read, share, please, please, please. And hey, listen, you may want to be a guest. And you may know someone that we need to bring on. Please inbox us. Let us know. We love to bring people on and talk and have conversations about what we can do to be the change that we want to see. God bless you. We'll see you on next week. Amen.
Amen.
All right.